Now, I've spoken on this program many times about 9/11 conspiracies, but this time it seems there may be something to it. If not the more outlandish ones propagated by the so-called truthers, but a rather worrying and high-level one, a royal connection. First, the Miami Herald, and then my next guest found a curious connection between the hijackers' leaders, a well-to-do Saudi family in Miami, and the most well-to-do Saudi family of them all, the royal family. It started with a hastily abandoned house in Sarasota. Who would know about it? Russ Baker, my favorite and the best investigative journalist in the United States. Curiouser and curiouser. Russ, tell the viewers just what's been uncovered, would you?
Sure, George. Basically, a couple of weeks ago, an Irish journalist named Anthony Summers and an American one from Florida, Mr. Christensen, they had some kind of information about the following situation. So there, as you pointed out, there are two parts to this story. First, I'll tell what they found and then what we found at WhoWhatWhy.com. Basically, they received the following information. In Sarasota, Florida, which is on the coast, on the west coast of Florida, in other words, the opposite coast from Miami, shortly after 9/11, some people living in a gated community there noticed that their neighbors, a Saudi family, had disappeared. And they became aware of the fact that they had left about 11 days before 9/11 and had left a brand new car in the driveway. And so they were concerned, and they contacted the security officials of the community, who went into the house and found that the family had basically left everything there. They had left actually 3 cars, dirty diapers, clothing hanging there, everything, except they had removed one computer and opened a safe and taken out its contents and left the safe open. They apparently were in a great hurry. And so at this point then, federal officials were contacted. Some counterterrorism agent from some unstated department went in there with the security officer of the community. They checked out the house and then began an investigation. This brought in the FBI. And as we are told, this investigation resulted in the following. They found telephone records connecting the house, either directly or indirectly, to 11 of the hijackers. They also found that the gate of the community, that Mohammed Atta's identified vehicle, had passed through the gate on a visit to this house, and that at least one of his alleged Confederates had also done so. That is essentially their story. Now, the other thing the Herald points out is that this information was then apparently covered up, that the FBI never gave the information to the congressional investigators or to the presidential 9/11 Commission. So that's the first part of the story. The second part is that our investigative website, WhoWhatWhy.com, has just produced a new article in which we then look at this family that was living in this house. We find the following. The owner of the building, who himself was in the United States and apparently left hastily with the couple in the house, which was his daughter and son-in-law, they all returned to Saudi Arabia. And what we found was that this man actually is the head of, he's a director of a company in the United Kingdom, which in turn is owned by, basically chaired by one of the most powerful members of the Saudi royal family. We find this man's brother is essentially the CEO of the company, and the chairman of it is a man by the name of Prince Sultan bin Salman, who himself has fascinating connections. For example, he runs the international airports there in Saudi Arabia. He was one of the leading proponents many years back of teaching young Saudis to fly, and he himself trained to be a pilot in South Florida, the area where all of these alleged hijackers trained. And by the way, they trained just a short distance away from this Sarasota house.
Well, what a fascinating can of worms that all is. Let me take this back just a little. You're saying that a Saudi family were living there. They fled the coup, leaving, as I understand it, fruit in the dishes, food in the fridge. and, as you say, all sorts of family life debris. So they obviously left in a bit of a hurry. Did they leave before 9/11?
They did. They left, we think it was August 30th or thereabouts, which raises a very interesting question because, and we're not making any suppositions of any kind of guilt or connection. We're just stating facts here, but you do have to wonder why anyone, under any circumstances, even forget about 9/11, why would you, a couple with a small twins who had been living in this house for many years, you work there, you study there, your children are...
You learn to fly there.
You know, no, but why would you suddenly abandon your life in your house this few days before 9/11? I mean, one has to conclude that something was made clear to them that was so disturbing and unexpected that they were basically had, perhaps we're talking about minutes to get out of there. Now, there are a lot of different possibilities here, but it does not necessarily suggest a foreknowledge of exactly what went down or how it went down. Something else could have been going on. But, you know, myself, if I try to think about under what circumstances would I leave behind my entire life so hastily, it would have to be almost a mortal danger.
Yeah. And what evidence do we have that Mohammed Atta, the lead hijacker, that his car had been seen at this property?
I'm reporting this secondhand based on the work of Dan Christensen and Tony Summers. But basically, they received, and I've talked to Dan, they saw this information from officials in the gated community, the security officials. When you drive through the gate, they get your license information, and according to the investigation, you know, Mohammed Atta's vehicle was known, and that was one of the vehicles that went through. They also asked for identification, I believe, of the occupants of the cars, and that one of them was Ziad Jarrah, identified as one of the other hijackers. So you have that. That's enough right there, but in addition, they say that they were told that the FBI did this phone analysis and connected to all of these additional people who apparently had no direct connections with each other, but were all in that general area preparing for this event.
Now, this head of household has a brother involved in a company in England, the head of which is a member of the Saudi royal family. So we've got Britain, America, the Saudi royal family, this hastily evacuated Saudi family from Sarasota. This must be a big story in the United States, is it?
Well, you know where I'm going to go with this, George. Almost every story we break, and we break one big story after another. We even had somebody, a PR agency, put this stuff out. Every time we do a big story, there is a complete and total silence from all of the big mainstream corporate-owned media. They simply ignore these stories. Now, how you could ignore? I mean, the Miami Herald is a for-profit corporate newspaper. They ignored the Miami Herald. They ignored us. They're simply that 99.9% of people in the United States and, frankly, in the UK may never hear this story.
Well, they're hearing it now, Russ. And